After game three, it looked like the Milwaukee Bucks figured some things out, but the wheels came off in game four, especially when you factor in the potentially serious injury to Damian Lillard. We'll break down what went wrong for the Bucks in their biggest loss of the postseason and how Dame's injury will affect them going forward on the other side of the intro.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, an NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and the co-host of the Technical File podcast. Joining me is Fayaz, managing editor at brewhoop.com, and we appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, and you can find us in newsletter form. Head over to lockedondaily.com and sign up for the free, I repeat, the free Locked On Bucks daily newsletter. Today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Van, I thought, when we said we are going to do this post game, I was like, man, this should be a really fun one. We talked about a little bit beforehand, like thinking how this game was going to pan out, but didn't go the way that we thought that it would. The Bucks lose game four, 129-103. The Pacers now lead the Bucks 3-1 in this best of seven series. Game five is Tuesday in Indiana, but we have to start with the big news that came out of this game, which happened early on in the game. Damian Lillard injured in the first quarter of the game, a non-contact injury, went down, grabbed the back of his left ankle. He will reportedly be getting an MRI tomorrow, but based on what Chris Haynes has reported, with him saying it's a potentially serious injury, from hearing Doc Rivers in his post-game presser just mention how he knew right away what it was for Dame and how bad he feels for Dame right now, to hearing reports that when Dame left Fiserv Forum, his foot was in a walking boot and he was on crutches. It feels like Damian Lillard has suffered a pretty serious injury, looking like it could be that Achilles. We can't confirm technically tonight because we don't have the confirmation, but all signs are pointing to a very, very serious injury for Dame. And I felt like when Dame went down in the first quarter, you felt all of the life kind of like leave Fiserv Forum. You felt it from the crowd. You saw it with the players. It just looked like the Bucks lost their mojo once Dame went down, and they had a really hard time finding it again.
Really dark times, Camille.
Truly.
I think we have to. I think we've got to go with the assumption right now that Damian Lillard's torn his left Achilles. I think there's really no way around it. Seeing it happen in real time, hard to tell. But when he's on the floor and he's going, motioning, he's cradling his left lower leg instantly. That's what you're worried about. The broadcast, Marcus Johnson brought it up pretty much right away. Didn't take too long for us to get some confirmation from Chris Haynes, who, of course, is very close with Damian Lillard. The first thing he tells us online on Twitter, Blue Sky, Milwaukee Bucks star Damian Lillard will not return tonight against the Indiana Pacers. League sources tell me injury potentially severe very soon after. Sources, the fear is that Bucks star Damian Lillard suffered a left Achilles tear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to point out that this is his left Achilles and the blood clot was in his right calf. So not connected to that at all, or rushing back too soon from that, completely different leg. But I think the most, I would say, the most sobering thing I read tonight was from Jeff Stotts of InStreetClothes.com, who is he's a certified athletic trainer, and I believe he formerly worked for an NBA team. He talks about how the integrity of the Achilles can be tested by a medical professional using a simple but highly accurate special test known as the Thompson test. And MRIs are often needed just for confirmation. Just looking up the Thompson test. I'm no doctor. What they do is they squeeze the calf muscles right around the gastrocnemius and the soleus, which we know about from last year. Squeezing it should cause the Achilles to contract, and your plantar flex should happen. Like, your foot should flex. But if it's ruptured, there won't be any flexion. So what I read in all this is that they performed that test right away, and they determined this is probably a torn Achilles. We'll just have to look tomorrow with the scans just to confirm. So it might be a formality at this point. Yeah, a torn Achilles is
sucks.
It's one of the worst things you can have, that and the ACL tear as a basketball player. It will knock Damian Lillard out of commission for up to a year. And at this stage in his career, he's going to be 35 this summer. It's fair to wonder, if he'll ever be able to recapture the form we saw this year from him, which, before the blood clot, I think he was an all-NBA candidate. But, we saw what happened to Kobe Bryant when he tore his Achilles. That was age 36. Just played 2 more years after that. Wasn't the same player. So, I feel really bad for Damian Lillard. It's just like absolutely brutal for him. I feel bad as a Bucks fan. I feel bad for other Bucks fans. I feel bad for, basketball fans in general being robbed of seeing someone this special play. And yeah, it just, my heart just completely sank when it happened. And I couldn't really focus much on the game. I'm sure I'm not alone out there. Really difficult to even, when the Bucks are trying to make a move in the second half, to really appreciate it, because you just can't help but think about what this means for this franchise moving forward. So there'll be plenty of time to talk about that.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of things to talk about, I think, come this off season, which is why for today's episode, focusing on Game 4 and what happened there, like, kind of want to keep the conversation around the game, around what's happening, because again, we'll have a lot of time come the off season to talk about what this means for Dame, how the Bucks can pivot, what this means for Giannis's future as well. But I do want to say this about Dame as well, because I think you captured it well of just saying how you feel bad as a Bucks fan, you feel bad as a basketball, like you just feel bad for Dame. And with everything that Dame has been going through since he arrived to Milwaukee, knowing that last year for Dame was a really tough year for him in his personal life, with everything that he had going on there, with, his ex-wife now not being able to be around his kids, to moving to a new city for the first time in his professional career, to this year where he spent so much time and effort getting ready for the season, saying like, you won't even understand how big of a difference having this offseason is going to make for me. Seeing him come out, put up like 25 and 7 consistently for the Bucks this year, deal with injury, deal with the blood clots, comes back from the blood clot, and now it's looking like an Achilles injury for Damian Lillard. Like you said, I feel bad for him as a human, as a person too, not even as a Bucks fan, not even worrying about what this means for the team, but just on a personal level. I feel bad for Dame, and definitely just want to send best wishes to him going forward with his recovery from this, because it is a brutal injury to try to come back from. So
yeah,
again,
you don't want to see anybody, even hell, like I don't want to see Tyrese Halliburton.
Nobody. Nobody.
As much as we don't like him around here, but this is it's just very sad. There's no other way to say it. It sucks. It's very bleak right now. It's hard to really, get too excited about this series, or just, feel anything but just sadness. There's a dark cloud over everything right now as a Bucks fan. So nothing else really to say.
Yeah, especially when you think about just how every season has gone since the Bucks won a championship, where it has been this injury refrain continuing to come back. So,
but they still have it. Like you see behind me, that'll always be there. They may have had to sell their soul to some sort of dark lord to stay healthy that year and win that title. But that flag flies forever.
It surely does.
Never forget that.
Can't forget that, especially at a time like this. But Let's talk a little bit about what we did see in game 4, which again, switching back to that after this is how it started with this Dame news and that energy over the arena and in the building and watching the game. But a really disappointing game, I think, for the Milwaukee Bucks, even outside of the Damian Lillard injury. We'll talk about why it was disappointing, as well as some of the biggest problems we saw from the Bucks in game 4 right after this. The NBA playoffs are here. Hockey playoffs are here, and there is no better time to turn your sports knowledge into real cash than with Prize Picks, the top destination for daily fantasy action. Prize Picks makes it simple. You pick more or less on at least 2 different player projections, and then you're in. You can even mix and match players across basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. The app makes it so easy. You can build a lineup in under 60 seconds, and with like Taco Tuesday discounts, Flex Friday promos, which happen to be my personal favorite, there's even more value each week. And when you win, you get paid fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. I can attest to that. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Van. So in this game, the Bucks lose 129-103 to the Pacers, as mentioned, dropping game 4 after they looked like they really were figuring some things out in game 3. But it truly went off the rails for the Bucks tonight in game 4. And I want to ask you, what do you think was the biggest problem for the Bucks in this loss, the biggest loss they've had so far in the playoffs? Because after game 3, and the everydayers remember this, Frank mentioned that he felt like the Bucks defense did a great job in attacking switches, being physical on defense. I did not see that same energy from them tonight. Too many late rotations, giving up too many open shots again, too much dribble penetration. Pretty much the same problems that like really troubled the Bucks earlier on in this series. Reared their ugly head again outside of transition, where they did all right for the most part, but just too many breakdowns in the half court. But in your opinion, what do you think was the biggest problem for the Bucks in this loss?
The Pacers, every shot they took seemed like it went in. I mean, they shoot 60% from the floor. They're 18 of 39 from 3. That's 46%. You look at numbers like that and you think, okay, outlier shooting, right? Mm-hmm. But some of these shots were just, some of them were very difficult. Some of them were very difficult. I'll give them that. Like the Pacers made shots that, most NBA teams typically don't, but the Pacers seem to make them against the Bucks, at least this series. Some shots were well defended. Most of them, though, were not. Sometimes the rotations just didn't happen. And even when the Bucks went to zone, I thought this was like, all of a sudden, this was the first time we saw the zone just completely fall apart this series. But even Giannis just not closing out to the corner. There were, 3 possessions in a row, Ben Shepherd, and I think it was maybe, I remember Shepherd's most, but in that corner, that far corner there in front of the Pacers bench, just even if they were covered, the Pacers are making them, and then Giannis just decided not to close out there. So the help maybe was coming too soon at points, but it just seemed like every time, the Pacers would go into the lane, they were able to get back to an open shooter without any problem. Mm-hmm. And just, kind of room service open threes for them. So, I didn't really, I don't think I saw it quite as bad in other games as I did tonight. It just seemed like tonight there really wasn't any enough effort or any effort at times being made to close out on shooters. Happened a few times, but I don't know. You can chalk that up to just a team that's very downtrodden after seeing one of their best players go out with a catastrophic injury. Just seemed like they had no fight in them for long periods of the game. And even though in the third quarter they got to 9, just that sequence that came right after it, Pacers immediately get back up to 16, and just felt like some real daggers right at the end of the third quarter with Kevin Porter Jr. missing that 3, and then with just 2 seconds left, the Pacers able to get up the court and score a bucket right at the buzzer going into the fourth. Yeah, just there was no fight after a certain point in the game.
So. That's a point that I was thinking of too, because I've mentioned it a lot of times, especially here on Locked On Bucks, that in a season where the Milwaukee Bucks were consistently inconsistent, I said the one thing I continuously could count on for this team was that they were going to show fight. No quit in this Milwaukee Bucks team. We've seen them have crazy comebacks, even to close the regular season. That comeback win against the Minnesota Timberwolves, where you hear that Bobby Portis was in the huddle telling guys like, hey, can't quit, no give up in this team. Like, this is what we might see in the playoffs. Like, we have to continue to battle. And they battled and came back and won that game. Tonight's game against the Pacers was one of the first times where I felt like it just wasn't there for them. Like, the heart for this team wasn't there. And it could be, hey, Dame injury, seeing their guy go out, it really could have taken something out of them. And I thought that for a while there. I just kept saying, like, they need a spark. And a few times tempers would flare in this game between the Pacers and the Bucks. Not a surprise to see it. But we also know that the Pacers are looking to try to goad some of the guys on our team who are known to be a little bit more closer on that emotion, like can be a little hot-tempered. And at times I thought Bobby Portis was getting a little too close to the sun at times in this game. But then also was like, well, maybe that can be the spark for this team to kind of get them back into it. But when the Bucks would get rolling, you see them hit a couple of shots. They just could not stack enough stops. And it felt like whenever the Bucks got a little bit of momentum, the Pacers would find a way to respond with a big shot of their own. And it just continuously went that way for the team in this one. And also, I thought it was a little bit too much hero ball on offense at times, but I will give the Pacers credit. I thought they did a fantastic job at the timing of their doubles and whatnot of when they were showing help in this game. A lot more varied than what we saw in the last game from them, but just too much hero ball for the Bucks in this one, in my opinion, as well.
It's just funny thinking back now to the first 5 to 6 minutes of this game before the injury. Like, the Bucks started this game with a really outstanding defensive possession, which Brook Lopez was all over. He had a block, and then he stole the inbounds pass after. It looked like at first, okay, maybe the offense is what's going to struggle a little bit tonight, and certainly the offense was an issue. Giannis, I thought at times just. I mean, when he was catching on the block, he was getting a double right away. And while he attacked most of the night and for the most part did pretty well, and he shot free throws
well in this game.
Only missed 10 of 11.
Yeah.
But 9 of 20 from the floor. He only, he didn't make a jumper. He hits only his shots in the restricted area, but outside of like really 3 feet, even missed a few like within 4 or 5 feet. I think there were he was trying to get calls a lot that just weren't coming tonight. I think this is just a really bad series to have Tony Brothers with his specific brand of let's call it ref showmanship. With these two teams, with how much they hate each other and how chippy it gets, it just kind of bogs the game down a lot. But yeah, Giannis was hunting out contact, wasn't being rewarded for it. But also just sometimes the Bucks were not giving him any outlets. There were too many times I thought in the first half, especially where he's, there's just no one on the strong side. They empty everything out for him, and he's getting a double, and he just has no. He has to make a really difficult pass, like above the top of the defense, for anything to happen, and it was usually coming too late, and it resulted in a turnover on the first possession of the game that he was trying to get to Lopez, and if that pass is too high for even Brook Lopez to get it, so yeah, just there were execution problems. I thought, like with the basic sets that the offense tries to run, and I mean they had to throw one of their best. Sets out of the window. They ran Dame and Brook Lopez a few times to begin the game, but I don't recall even seeing Giannis set a screen for Dame and we're not going to see any for a while.
Just hearing it again.
Sorry, I got to bring it back. I mean, that's just,
I know
it's hanging over everything.
Yeah, it's where we are, which is
we can't ignore it, sadly.
We can't, which is the sad, unfortunate truth about this, as this Milwaukee Bucks team has to gear up for a Game 5 in Indiana, a place where they have not won a playoff game this year, nor did they win a playoff game in Indiana last year when it was a Bucks-Pacers series. So with that understanding, let's take a little bit of a look at Game 5, kind of a little quick look ahead to the game and what the Bucks need to try to do in order to extend this series against the Pacers. We'll get into that right after this. FanDuel. I enjoy daily fantasy, especially with the playoffs being here. FanDuel is also giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. So right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bet if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, which I'll probably do a lot more player props with how the Bucks season is starting to unfold here, but that's neither here nor there, because from 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has a lot of different ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Okay, Van, as we continue to wait, I'm sure Monday will offer a firm confirmation of the Damian Lillard news, but not expecting him back in this series this year here, and looking ahead to Game 5 on Tuesday. As I mentioned, the Bucks haven't won a game in Indy this year or last year. So in your opinion, what do you think the Bucks need to do to try to extend this series and try to play another game back in Milwaukee at Fiserv Forum?
They have to find some ways to get Giannis easier shots. I think like he's attracting so many bodies. One of the things I was hoping for tonight, and again, this was dashed very soon, was that Gary Trent, coming off, the greatest game of his career, still starting tonight. If the gravity that he was now going to command could be used for the Bucks' advantage, because the Pacers left. You think, you saw some open shots tonight, like for the Pacers, like those all were Gary Trent's shots in Game 3. He was, he had all day to shoot most of the time. So if he's commanding more, of a defensive presence, how could the Bucks have used that? Like, could they run some actions with him and Dame to get Halliburton on Dame, or with Giannis to get, because that was who Halliburton was guarding, Gary Trent. Nembhard, of course, has been the main guy on Dame all series. Of course, we didn't get to see that, but I just liked the idea of how, that could free someone up for a drive to the rim. Like if you manage to take advantage of Halliburton, and then down low, maybe like that causes Turner or even Siakam to help rotate in, and then boom, you've got a big man in the dunker spot. Maybe you're coming down the baseline for an easy 2. If they can figure that out somehow with Kevin Porter Jr., who is going to be the starting point guard in the next game, I'm sure. Maybe they go back to Ryan Rollins. We did see him in the second half. He got 9 minutes, hit a 3. I assume he will now be back in the rotation for Game 5. But yeah, just some way to get bodies further away from Giannis, because every Pacer was just kind of collapsing towards him, and there weren't open shooters at a passable distance, or
the spacing was a little wonky in this game.
Location, yeah. So that's probably the best thing they can do to help offensively. And defensively, it's just, I think it's an effort thing. Don't overhelp as much, but you have to close out on shooters. Especially with how well they shot tonight, like on the road. You have guys like Jarris Walker shooting 4 for 5 from deep. I mean, like, come on. Nembhard is 4 for 8. Like, Nembhard's a solid shooter, but you're getting burned by him. I mean, Siakam only has 12 points in this game. Halliburton has 17, but he's 2 for 5. And Miles Turner wasn't even the guy shooting the threes. He only was 1 for 3. He was making just everything
Mid-range.
inside the arc. Yeah. I mean, even TJ McConnell hit one too. Just have to respect these shooters a bit more. I mean, that's the only way you're going to be able to take the Pacers down on the road, is if you somehow hold them to like the type of shooting they were able to hold them to last year, where, the Pacers didn't really shoot better than like 33% in most of those games. So, and the Bucks shot well themselves tonight. They're 15 of 37. That's 40%. I mean, the Bucks this is like the one year that the Bucks don't, turn into a pumpkin shooting the three in the playoffs, but
can't get enough stops along the way to go with it.
Nope. Can't.
I think for me, looking at Game 5, it's a couple of things that stand out. And I know the Tuesday episode of Locked On Bucks, I'm assuming it'll probably be me and Justin. We'll have a lot more time to kind of talk about Game 5 and break things down. But some of the first things that come to mind instantly after reacting to watching Game 4, one, I mentioned before, just the do better button. Like, you have to execute better. First and foremost, the execution has to be better. I mentioned a little bit earlier on in this show of just keeping your cool. Like, Indy is going to be a madhouse on Tuesday because it's an elimination game. Their fans are going to be smelling blood. The Pacers are going to be smelling blood. So the Bucks are going to have to make sure they're able to keep their cool at various points to make sure they stay in this game. But also, Game 4 tonight, we saw Doc throw out a Kevin Porter Jr., Pat Connaughton, Taurean Prince, Jericho Sims, Brook Lopez lineup. Can we please see a Jericho Sims Giannis lineup? Just just try it at this point. We're trying all kinds of things if we're throwing lineups like that out there at the window. Like, let's just try a few things. I think continually going with a little bit less Brook, less Taurean Prince, and even a little less Kuz is going to be good for the Bucks in this series.
Oh,
but I
gotta
do
go with less Kuz.
Oh, yeah, you got to. You got to kind of ride the guys
just
a
disaster, a total. Like, let's be real about it. Like, he's been an absolute disaster this postseason, but it's not like we didn't see that coming. Some of us, anyway.
Has not been good for Kuz in this one. And one of the ways that I foresaw the Bucks using Kyle Kuzma when acquiring him was like, unlocking the Giannis at the 5 lineups. And we haven't even really seen many minutes with the two of them being your bigs on the court with the shooters around them, which has been disappointing to me going along the way as well of the Kyle Kuzma experience so far of like, this is what I expected when he came in. We even heard them mention like, hey, we think this can help unlock this. And we haven't seen it used. And this feels like a series where, again, prioritizing defenders who can move, being small, being versatile to kind of combat the Pacers playing their 5-out offense made some sense in my head. So just haven't been seeing the lineups to me that make a lot of sense. And Doc mentioned again post-game tonight of just them needing to find the right rotations, finding things that make sense. And it feels like we know the answers of in this series who should be on the court, who should not be on the court in heavy minutes. And again, I am a Brook Lopez fan, but this just has not been a great series, a great matchup for Brook Lopez. And I said it before, but like if they can find a way to get out the first round, which now they're staring down at the barrel of the gun in this one, but like if you can find a way, I can see where in other matchups, Brook Lopez is valuable, where Taurean Prince could be valuable. But for this one, it hasn't been working. So like we need to roll out here with what works.
I think the limited time we've seen Lopez after the first game, he's been all right. Like he started off, he hit a couple threes tonight when the game was still, we didn't know what was going to happen. He plays 15 minutes again. That's about the most you want of him. Talking about Sims and Giannis, I don't know if they were on the floor at any point together tonight, but
I don't recall seeing them together.
They haven't throughout the first 3 games, and in the regular season, only 32 minutes those two together. I mean, it's a tough matchup. I think like I've debated, I've gone back and forth on like that's whether or not that's something I want to see, but at
Because of
this
the spacing
point,
concerns with him.
right? Yeah, and just I don't. There's not much that Sims can do offensively. So I think there are a lot of people out there talking about it and saying like that it could work. I'm not confident in that, but I do think that Sims has been a positive in this series for them. So I have no problem seeing it, I guess, next game. I mean, just to try it or in the first half, I think is fine. But if you're expecting Jericho Sims to help turn this series around, I've got a lake house in Nebraska to sell you, something like that.
Yeah, it'll just help on the defensive end there with his versatility
Yeah.
there and being able to keep up with guys, and maybe they could generate some more points off of their defense going forward if they're able to, take the ball and run with it a little bit themselves. So I don't know. We'll continue to talk about it a little bit more as the week goes on, but a tough one for the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee tonight, dropping game 4, biggest loss of the playoffs so far for them. A disappointing game, all in all. But I do want to thank all the listeners for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. I normally do the Monday night recaps with Nick from Locked On Mavs, so we'll be on your Tuesday feed. So make sure you check out Locked On NBA Game Night as well. And for Van and myself, we'll catch you guys later.